Sorry, I left myself muted again. Right, let's go again with take two. Jesus Christ. There we go. And now I can hear myself. Right, we are ready to go. Right, Robert Helenius is the new opponent for Anthony Joshua. We're talking about that. We'll be talking about Dillian Whyte, Conor Benn, and also we'll be talking about Simon Jordan versus Eddie Hearn. But before I do, let me introduce a special guest. It's my brother from another mother. There you go. There's the graphics on the screen. Riku is back, and I've just realized I haven't even plugged my headphones in, so I can't even hear Riku at the minute. But I will be able to do so. Riku, please start off with any of those topics that you would like. Helenius, the opponent for Anthony Joshua, Conor Benn, Eddie Hearn, Matchroom, Simon Jordan, anywhere you want to start, Riku.
Yeah, I mean, it's been an interesting week or so in boxing, right? We had Spence against Crawford, and then you have Inoue against Fulton. And now we're back into the realm of British boxing where everything's a complete shit show as usual, where we've got doping tests, radio host arguing with Eddie Hearn, protocol conversations, and subpar opponents to replace main events. So I think it's been an interesting week, and it's only going to continue. And I think Helenius is a very poor opponent for Anthony Joshua for many reasons.
Well, let's just start with that. Let's start with Helenius as the opponent. The news got broken last night at about 10 p.m., just after I went off air, funnily enough, that Helenius was going to be the opponent. The sources, the people on Twitter with quote-unquote sources, HP sources, claimed that Helenius was a done deal. Because this is a very, very impromptu episode, I haven't had the time to get the video up of Eddie Hearn calling Helenius basically a washed-up fighter. Which is doing the rounds. He seems to have completely contradicted himself, Riku. 1 minute he's now saying Helenius is a dangerous opponent. I'm now going to try and find a video of him saying Helenius is a bit past it when Wilder beat him. Go on, Riku. Give us your thoughts on Helenius as the opponent.
Yeah, I mean, as somebody from Finland, I probably follow a bit more Helenius than most boxing fans in the UK. And interesting enough, there was lots of chatter in Finland last week about his big fight in this castle in Savonlinna, where he decided to face a 40-year-old CEO of a security firm who was 6-0, who took up boxing 2 years ago. This man had never boxed until 2021, and 6-0 record padded. Helenius decided to fight against him, beat him in 3 rounds on a TKO. Didn't look great, but 3 rounds against a complete novice. So I think that's all we need to know about a 39-year-old heavyweight that's been knocked out on numerous occasions and had some name recognition at one point.
And in his 2 last fights, knocked out Helenius, knocked out in his last 2 as well.
Well, he won the last one, didn't he, against the 6?
Oh, yeah, so I forgot about that one.
Yeah. When we saw Eddie Hearn, there's a video on Twitter circulating around where they talk about him having a comeback fight and, back into winning ways. Let's just recognize he would have had harder sparring in the gym many times than this opponent. It's like you or I stepping in the ring against somebody, maybe after training a bit more consistently for 3 months, against somebody that's world ranked, and then beating us and then saying they're on a comeback trail. So the level of opponent Helenius fought is so terrible that I wouldn't even call that. And if anything, it probably hinders him that he's peaked for the night and now is fighting again in 1 week's time. I think what they're trying to do essentially is to try and get Joshua to knock him out in 1 round, like they did, like Wilder did, and then they can build the fight up by both of these guys have first round stoppages against a durable opponent, and it's going to be an explosive fight if the Wilder fight ever happens. I'm still skeptical, but I think that's the idea here.
Let me just say, you have to give Matchroom and DAZN one bit of credit. The fight is now no longer pay-per-view.
Well, I don't think they had a choice because nobody would have bought the pay-per-view, right? So you You can give something away for free that nobody wants, or you can charge something for free that people won't pay for. You've got two options, so it's probably the most sensible decision. But nobody was ever going to pay for Helenius against Joshua on pay-per-view.
Just quickly say, the zone. Things are getting quite desperate, aren't they, over there now? Struggling to get a pay-per-view going in the UK. This is the second time that they've tried to get a pay-per-view going in the UK, and they've been unable to. And Anthony Joshua, as we know, is now having to take a quote-unquote restructured deal, basically less money, basically. He's not going to get the money that he was previously guaranteed in order to take on Helenius and fight Helenius on the weekend. You also mentioned about Wilder. To me, Riku, and I keep asking this question. I asked this question to Charlie Parsons, the interviewer extraordinaire, on his Twitter page, and didn't receive an answer because, a few people are saying, "Oh, this would be a nice little come up to the Wilder fight," because Anthony Joshua's fighting an opponent he's previously fought, Deontay Wilder, so it's a nice little wind up to that fight. And I've said the thing about these Saudi Arabian skills challenge deals, where are these offers? Because all I see at the minute is a bunch of talk and hot air from promoters. There's never been any offer of any kind that has been sent from Skills Challenge to Matchroom for a fight between Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder. Do you still think, that Anthony Joshua is going to go from a fight with Robert Helenius, on a week's notice into fighting Deontay Wilder in January, December time? Because I'm not convinced that's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, DAZN said that pay-per-view is dead, and they are doing their best to kill pay-per-view. That's my first point. The second, on your question about that, you remember during the pandemic, there was all this money coming from Saudi Arabia to make Joshua against Wilder, and we are talking about hundreds of millions and all this other stuff. And then there was meant to be Wilder Fury in Saudi Arabia, lots of money going around. I'm yet to see that materializing. So all of the chat that we've had over the last 3 years or so about all this money in Saudi Arabia that's coming from whether it be Skills Challenge or somebody else, we haven't seen that money. It's been a pipe dream. And I find it hard to believe that for all these events that are meant to be big, Saudi Arabia wouldn't stump up the cash for that, whereas they're happy to stump up the cash for whether to have Formula One races, football players, everything else, but they wouldn't stump up. We've seen how quickly they're willing to buy football players and how much money is being stumped up in minutes, yet they can't even get these fights going. So I think this is all just hyperbole. And if they can't make the fight without Saudi Arabian money, I don't think they're going to make the fight with Saudi Arabian money. You're going to have the same problems, right? Think about it this way, right? If always the issue is the purse splits, the networks, the broadcasters, all this other stuff, just because there's more money in the pot doesn't mean that there's something going to solve it. So unless there's like a magic numbers which won't exist, because why would he have Joshua against Wilder in Saudi Arabia? It's not that much of a bigger fight than, say, Fury against Ngannou or something else, not for the boxing public, but for the casual fans. And that's all they want, right? They want casual fans to focus on what's going on there. They're not interested in hardcore boxing fans having great fights there.
If you put your DAZN hat on, if you were running DAZN and you had a choice between Helenius, Chisora, Washington, and Dempsey McKean for Anthony Joshua this Saturday, and you wanted to either try and keep the fight on pay-per-view or try and get as many people watching as possible, who would you want the fight to be? So what I'm trying to say is out of the most realistic opponents that were actually available, right? And I'm not criticizing Matchroom for Helenius because
you don't think Hrgovic makes that list then, or is it too short?
No, Hrgovic is there's just no way.
Yeah, I agree.
If Anthony Joshua took a fight with Filip Hrgovic and got beat, right?
Yeah,
I'd be on here criticizing his management the next day for making that fight. So me personally, right, I'd be a hypocrite. Do you know what I mean? Because if they made the fight with Hrgovic, right, I'd be on here criticizing. Nico's here. Just a quick question, Nico, and me and Nico will address it. If you just tell me what did Simon get smocked on, Nico? Tell me, what did Simon get smocked on Tell me in the chat, and then me and Riku will discuss it later on. We've got 15 minutes. But anyway, who would you like to see? Who would you like? What?
I mean, I think Chisora is the name value, but the reality is Chisora probably shouldn't be fighting in the ring. I mean, I don't think he holds a board license if you look at the board website. So,
right.
So Chisora would be the name value, but I don't think Chisora should be fighting. And you don't want somebody splattered on your network either. I think Dempsey McKean. You know what? Australian, young heavyweight, sort of good record. Nobody knows much. You can probably hype him up as a real credible threat. And if they would have made this fight initially as a tune-up fight, Dempsey McKean versus Joshua, people would have said, okay, it's both a tune-up. It's a unpredictable fighter. We don't know much about him. They would have bought into it. The problem is you're anchoring everything on Dillian Whyte. So you're saying, what's the closest equivalent to the Dillian Whyte fight, which I think a lot of people were excited about.
Let me ask you about Dillian Whyte now. Let's get some thoughts on Dillian and this adverse finding. What immediately came into your mind when you heard that Whyte had failed? And I've got this right. It's his third failure, right? Third failure.
Yeah, the first failure was the over-the-counter supplement, and second one was the missing B sample, which then got overturned. But yeah, this one we don't know what the supplement is, or what he's failed for. But I think what really comes to me is you can be unlucky once or twice, right? You can have a spike Nando's, or you can have a nasal spray, or what else have we heard? Your eggs, the eggs you ate are bad or something like that. But I think when you fail 3 times, right, it just raises too many questions. And I think it's not surprising, but I just thought, to be honest, he's just missing out on a big payday, and he's probably ended his career because Matchroom don't really work with Whyte anymore. So who's going to take him on, and who's going to care for him anymore?
Okay. Do you what do you think about the way? Okay, let me ask you another question. That's a bit of a leading question. Do you think there's been a big difference in the way that Matchroom have dealt with Dillian Whyte versus how they've dealt with Conor Benn? Because my concern is that Dillian Whyte is going to get, and it looks like he's getting absolutely thrown under the bus. Just to quickly say, Riku, if you look here today, I saw a comment from Eddie Hearn, and it's a quote from the Simon Jordan show that was done today on Talk Sport. And I believe he said that, and I'll try and find the quote in a minute, that literally as soon as he found out about Dillian's case, he said he cancelled Dillian's contract immediately. Now, I don't think Dillian has a contract with Matchroom, but they cancelled the contract for the fight.
Yeah,
exactly. Do you think there's a big difference in the way that Matchroom are handling Conor Benn versus how they're handling Dillian? And do you think the signs point towards the fact here that Dillian's going to be on his own here? He's going to be hung out to dry by Matchroom on this one.
Yeah, I mean, even if you think about the way how they dealt with Dillian Whyte's second positive test against Oscar Rivas, right? They hid it until the end. They wanted the fight to go out, and then can't remember, was it Thomas Hauser published his piece about it, and they were upset, and they were saying Thomas Hauser's to blame. And again with Conor Benn, we had the same, right? They did their best, whereas in this case, I think there's too many things that went against Dillian. One is maybe the fight. I mean, look, the O2 released. I'm an O2 customer. So they were still selling tickets and trying to sell extra tickets for the fight last week. I got like a text message notification about it.
Right.
So maybe the fight wasn't selling as well as they thought. The interest wasn't there. And the other thing is, there's no money to be made from Dillian in 2 years' time. So why would they take another shellacking by the public? This is probably Eddie's moment and Matchroom's moment to try and show that they tough on doping in boxing and they're doing the right thing. So I think part of it was to play about that. And I imagine AJ probably thinks if the pay-per-view numbers aren't going to be good, it might not be as substantial cut as it would be, as you'd imagine it to be, as he's making out, right? Because he would have had a contract and pay-per-view upside. Now he probably just gets a flat fee and he doesn't have to worry about the pay-per-view upside too much. But I think ultimately, the way how they've handled this case versus the Oscar Eva case or the Conor Benn case, they trying to come out as the good guy because they can't afford to mess too many of these up anymore, right? People have already lost trust in boxing. People have lost trust in the board. People have lost trust in the doping testing systems in boxing. So for me, they've tried to do the best they can to salvage their own reputation, and it will be at the expense of Dillian Whyte's reputation.
Let me just say, and I think this is very interesting. I think we're going to see quite a bit of this. If you look at the guys on the right-hand side of the screen, Michael Benson has done a bit of journalism for a change. Michael Benson, by the way, does exist. He is real. If you watch the interviews between Eddie and Simon Jordan, if you just look in the booth at the back, you can see Michael Benson hiding in the background. So he's been spotted many times. He is a real guy. Michael Benson said he asked Eddie Hearn while Dillian Whyte's latest drug test situation has been handled so differently to Conor Benn's situation last year. And he said the following. He said many things. The two are very different in terms of substances, different results, which I can't go into much. We'll talk about that another time. But what the fuck has different substances got to do with it? Can you see, like, guys, what do you think about that? And what do you think about this? What do you guys think about different substances? What the fuck has different substances got to do? Why do we handle cases differently depending on different substances? Conor Benn tested positive for Clomid, right? Which is a post-cycle therapy drug. Is that right, Tony? Clomid. Yeah, Clomid. Clomiphene Clomid, yeah? Which is commonly used after you finish a steroid cycle, right? So why would that mitigate Conor Benn in some way that it wouldn't mitigate Dillian Whyte? Why would you say you handle the case with Dillian Whyte differently? Because Conor Benn tested twice for clomiphene, and Dillian Whyte tested positive for another substance. Nico is completely. Nico says because if it's a different substance, this is obviously intentional. So Nico believes that the substance. Nico believes the substance you get caught with can tell you if it's intentional or not.
No, so I think Nico's right. So what I think he probably means, and what Eddie's trying to say is, if you get caught with EPO, then the only way you can get EPO in your body is through performance-enhancing substances, right?
Right.
Whereas if you get clomiphene or clenbuterol or stuff like that, then you can claim. Then you can claim you've got it from meat or chicken or dairy or whatever, right? So essentially what he's saying is we can't defend this, right? This shouldn't be in his body. Whereas I think with the Conor Benn one, everybody said, you know what? Let's figure a way to blame this on the eggs, and because I think water has to prove essentially that it's impossible they got to your body that way, and then you just do a short ban. So I think in this case, it's probably something which there's no way you can naturally ingest. Unless you can prove contamination. So you can obviously, Whyte would have to try and prove that the lab which the substances were made had some contamination issues with the over-the-counter substances he bought, but that becomes difficult.
Yeah, Nico's saying 100. I think he lives in cloud cuckoo land there. Semi taking the piss out of you there, Nico.
Don't forget.
Nico, do you believe Conor Benn?
Don't forget King's College. They purposely contaminated Conor Benn's test. Do you remember that? When Conor Benn was adamant that the lab had purposely took his anonymous tests and contaminated them. Do you remember that?
Yeah, a load of nonsense. Nico, would you like to call in at 2 p.m. so we can have a chat? I will literally sit and listen to you for 5 minutes, chat along, yeah? And then I'll give you my verdict. But Nico, if you'd like to call in, and I'd like to discuss two things with you. One is that you've said Conor Benn's been cleared by UKAD. I haven't seen any evidence he's been cleared by UKAD. So if you can come on and point and show me this evidence that Conor Benn's been cleared by UKAD, that's fine. And point two, Nico, if you like to come on and discuss, because I think you've just agreed there 100% that there's a chance that Conor Benn has been has ingested Clomid via eggs. If you'd like to come on and discuss
I don't think that's the case, but he can. But they can't prove that he hasn't, right? So that's the difference.
Well, they can quite easily because very simple. The onus of proof is on Conor Benn. If you say that you've been contaminated by food, right? If you say you failed a drugs test because of food contamination, it's down to you to produce proof that's the case. When Canelo Alvarez said, that he tested positive for clenbuterol via steak. Canelo Alvarez, rightly or wrongly, was able to produce receipts, from the restaurant which had the meat, which was then traced back and apparently contained clenbuterol. Now, whether you agree on that or disagree on Canelo, that's fine. But Canelo just didn't turn up and say, oh, it was dodgy meat. Canelo actually produced receipts. So hold on, Conor Benn, right? Certainly to convince me, if he's going to claim there's some kind of food contamination, then what I would like to see is the following from Conor Benn. I'd like to see a receipt of this, of which food was it? So question number 1, what's the food? 2, who's the manufacturer? And 3, provide receipts, which is easy because everybody buys things these days, Riku, on card. No one pays by cash. Be very simple to prove. Carry on, Riku.
No, that's true. And I think so let's be clear, he hasn't been cleared. I think if I understood the statements correctly, he isn't banned anymore, right? But that's different to being cleared. Being cleared means that you're exonerated, so you haven't done anything wrong. What they've only said is you're not banned anymore, but we haven't cleared you, because otherwise they have to admit that they were wrong. And in order for them to admit that they were wrong, Conor Benn has to provide the proof.
Yeah. We'll talk about that in a bit, but yeah, I agree with you. But my general point is, Riku, this thing here, I can see a slippery slope coming here. For me, like I said before, different substances. As far as I'm concerned, Conor Benn tested positive, right, for something that's commonly used in post-cycle therapy, which is on the World Anti-Doping Agency list, prohibited list, as being banned at all fucking times. This is not the same as taking a fucking nasal spray. What they found in Conor Benn's system, because this is not the same as Billy Joe Saunders, where Billy Joe Saunders was tested positive for a completely different substance, which was allowed to be taken when he took it under UCAD rules. Conor Benn tested positive for a very, very serious substance, as Dillian Whyte may have. So what I do want to see here, Riku, and then I'll let you move on to whatever topic you want. I'm just keen to see Dillian Whyte get the same treatment, and I'm keen to see Dillian Whyte get a fair trial. Do you know what I mean? What I'm not keen to see now is Matchroom start throwing Dillian Whyte under the bus under the guise of different substances. Riku, talk about anything you want. It doesn't have to be this. You can move, switch topic.
I mean,
anything that comes to your mind.
On this point, because I agree on that, but I think this whole thing misses the point, right? If somebody tests positive, the fight should be cancelled instantly. It shouldn't be for Matchroom to decide what substances allow the fight to go on and what not. Or at the very least, both fighters should be informed and they can make a decision, and then all the parties that are notified can be. But isn't that the point of testing, right? If it's a 100-meter sprint race or it's the Olympics, if you test positive for something before the Olympics, you're not competing. Only in boxing is it the promoter and the teams of both fighters that can make the choices of, well, you know what, in this case, we're not going to care about the test results. In this case, we are. And that's, I think, where the problem is. Because otherwise, what's the point of testing if we're not trying to catch people? The only thing you're doing is essentially saying, we'll test to find out what people have. And if they have, we'll decide whether it's in our interest to continue or not.
Riku, I know you have to dash off at 2.
I'll do like 5-10 minutes.
Okay. Please, and is there anything else that you would like to talk about in terms of because there's loads of things, but I just don't want to.
I mean, you choose. Let's talk about one more topic.
Okay, we talked about Joshua versus Helenius. We've talked about Dillian Whyte. We've talked about Conor Benn. You don't believe Conor Benn's cleared. I don't believe he's cleared. We'll talk about that in a minute. What do you think about the whole Simon Jordan versus Eddie Hearn thing? I think, right. Oh my God, I forgot to say. Can I start off by saying? Let me say this. Simon Jordan, Jesus Christ, he revealed this morning that he was ill with cancer. Let me start off by saying my prayers go out to Simon Jordan, and I really hope that Simon Jordan's okay and that he recovers. And let me tell you, Simon Jordan is a hell of a man. The man came straight out of prostate cancer surgery 2 weeks ago and jumped straight into a booth, and started having these interviews. And I just think that, let me start off by saying, I don't think Talk Sport is the right platform to have these kind of nuanced discussions, right, about doping. That's what I've come to realize, because with all due respect, right, and I'll get in trouble for saying this, but I'm going to be honest and say it. I do think the majority of people that listen to Talk Sports are, let's put it this way. They're Ford Fiestas, aren't they? They're Ford Fiesta drivers, aren't they? These are your Ford Fiestas. These are your Peugeot 206s. These are your Big Mac with a large fries and chips type deals, right? These are quickly. Let's head to Primark. There's a 2-for-1 sale on. You get a certain type of clientele that listen to Talk Sport. And I was watching some of the chat as I was peeking. I only watched like 5 minutes of Jordan and Hearn, and it was quite clear that most of the people in the chat didn't really understand what the fuck Hearn was talking about. And they didn't understand what the fuck Jordan was talking about. And they were just sitting there fucking cheerleading, saying, Hearn's destroying Jordan, Jordan's destroying Hearn, without actually understanding what the fuck's going on. But I will say one thing, right? I will say Simon Jordan should be given a lot of credit. And people, I think it was quite disgusting, to be honest, to see people attacking Simon Jordan on a personal level over this whole drug testing thing. The man's just announced he's got cancer, literally, on fucking air, and that he's come out of surgery, to fucking do this interview today. And he's back on Talk Sport, and he came in to talk to Eddie. Did Eddie Hearn, by the way, can anybody tell me, did Eddie Hearn wish Simon Jordan good health on the show? Can somebody tell me?
I think he did. I think
he did. Yeah, I'm just checking. Because I didn't get to see that, because I think, people, like I said, always need to keep a bit of perspective. I see a lot of people slagging off Simon Jordan. Like I said before, if you were ill with what Simon Jordan was ill with, trust me, you wouldn't turn up to work in a suit to duke it out with anybody.
No.
What do you think about that? I think Simon Jordan's kind of, I don't think he knows at the minute quite how to deal with Eddie Hearn in his interviews. And I don't think, Enrique, that really Talk Sport is the best platform to deal with this. What do you think about that?
I mean, Simon Jordan, the general, his expertise is the business of sport, right? I think doping is a very complex issue, complicated in boxing by multiple governing bodies, sanctioning bodies, and then on top of that, multiple testing agencies. So the only people really that understand in detail about the testing and what's been agreed, because there's no transparency in the first place, what testing is being done, how it's been done, it's a complete minefield. And I think that's where the problematic thing in boxing occurs, that you have two testing agencies testing fighters. One's recognized by one body, one's not recognized by the other. Promoters can say that one's a good body, the other one isn't. So the whole point about this complexity around the doping testing is that it's meant to tie everybody into knots, and it's meant to just confuse everyone and make everybody that doesn't know it's in and out sound stupid. And I think Eddie Hearn really plays on that fact. But shouldn't we just agree that if somebody tests positive, then they shouldn't be fighting? They should be banned, or they should have a period where they can prove their innocence, but they shouldn't be fighting in that period. And I think boxing has lost a whole lot of credibility with the way it's handling doping, because it's not taking it seriously. Yet on the other hand, it's always talking about boxing being a dangerous sport and people risking their lives. You can't be both. You can't essentially say we care about people's well-being, but yet we allow drug cheats to be fighting in the sport that have tested positively. Those two are not compatible. And I think that's the problem.
I think, to be honest, this morning, I only watched 4 or 5 minutes of it, and then it just turned into a shout fest. I don't think, right, first and foremost, you've got a situation where you've got Jim Whyte in the middle. Jim Whyte is absolutely clueless. I don't know what you guys think. Jim Whyte is, you've got the fact you've got Jim Whyte as a moderator. Jim Whyte is absolutely fucking useless, right? So he's sitting in there. He's asking stupid questions. He doesn't have a clue what's going on. He's done no research on the subject whatsoever. I don't think Simon's done enough research on the subject, and now we know why, because the man's obviously going through cancer treatment. And then, like I said before, again, I wish Simon Jordan all the best, and I really hope that nothing happens to him and things like that. But it comes to me, Riku, is the way to sort of deal with Eddie Hearn, I've come to realize. I'm not sure if a face-to-face interview with Eddie Hearn is the best way to deal with it, right? Because I think, he's very, 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 very crafty. But I tell you something, what you need to do with him is, if you do a face-to-face interview with him, you need to come armed with his quotes. And Talk Sport have completely fucked up again, because what should have happened was they should have gone through his interview with a fine-tooth comb, and they should have had recordings of him ready to go, because that's how you get Eddie Hearn. What you do with him is you just play back what he said in a previous episode and then get back to him. And another thing that happened was they kept jumping over, and this is why I've got this on the screen. Frank Warren wanted to call in to Talk Sport and speak to Eddie Hearn live on the air. And Frank is claiming that Eddie wouldn't speak to him live on air, which I believe, because Frank came on the air straight as soon as Eddie Hearn left. So I do believe that Eddie Hearn refused to speak to Frank Warren live on air. And I think I know the reason why, because I think I know the question that Frank's going to ask. And it was a question that Simon didn't push on enough, because Simon keeps jumping around on a million different things. He's concerned with bullshit like, oh, why did you cancel the Conor Benn fight, but you didn't cancel the Dillian Whyte fight and all this kind of stuff, right? Nico is saying Bricktop got embarrassed. How did he come on the show? How did he get embarrassed, Nico? If you can't explain that, you'll get banned immediately for criticizing my boss. Because I've offered you now 17 times. I've offered you 17 times to call into this show and explain yourself, and you won't call in, Nico. So I want an explanation right now. Anyway, let me say, Riku, Simon Jordan keeps dancing around the subject. I think Frank Warren was going to ask the same question I would have asked to Eddie Hearn. It's a very, very simple question. And with Eddie Hearn, you need to deal in simple question followed by a yes or no answer. Don't start talking about why did you do this, why did you do that. Don't start jumping over. Very, very simple question. This would be my question, Riku. You said UKAD have cleared Conor Benn, right? It's very, very simple. There was a hearing between the National Anti-Doping Panel and Conor Benn 2 weeks ago, right? What was the result of that hearing? It's believed the result of the hearing was that the National Anti-Doping Panel said UKAD have no jurisdiction over Conor Benn. Yes or no question? In a hearing that was held 2 weeks ago between Conor Benn and the National Anti-Doping Panel, yes or no? Did they rule that UKAD do not have a jurisdiction over Conor Benn? And did they rule that UKAD have no remit over Conor Benn? If the answer is yes, then it's very simple. He's not been cleared by UKAD. Makes sense, because the National Anti-Doping Panel saying Conor Benn is outside of UK remit, you don't have the rights to punish him, is not UKAD clearing Conor Benn.
Exactly.
Right? And we know for a fact from journalists like Riyadh Al-Samari that there's no way UKAD could have cleared Conor Benn, because Conor Benn hasn't even presented any scientific evidence to UKAD or the National Anti-Doping Panel. He's produced none of this scientific evidence yet. The only thing that they've argued is over jurisdiction. All this funky evidence about how he's got this unique physiology, which means his body's predisposed to testing positive for Clomid. Nobody's heard any of that yet, to my knowledge, right? No. What the established journalists like Riyadh Al-Samari have said, specifically said, is nobody has actually heard this science-based evidence. It's over jurisdiction. So as far as I'm concerned, Eddie Hearn has clearly lied about UKAD clearing Conor Benn. And Simon Jordan should have pushed him on that and asked him for a yes or no answer and stayed on that question and that alone. But he then gets caught up in all this other shit. And it's just getting to the point, Riku, where it's just two egos colliding, Riku. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And I think the thing, what you said about Eddie Hearn is, I think it's too early to put him down on this stuff. Not enough has come out. So there hasn't been enough information yet about this white ban. Like, what is it? What the substance is? What are different bodies saying? You know, what's Matchroom's reaction? You're probably better off doing it in a few weeks' time, not straight away. I think at the moment it's just, essentially, Eddie Hearn has much more information than Simon Jordan or TalkSport will have. So he can just say, no, that's not true. I mean, he focused too much on when did they get the call and when was the fight.
Exactly. Nonsense.
The only people that can categorically say that are Eddie Hearn, Dillian Whyte and Joshua. So you have to wait for them to say something that contradicts one another, and then you can call that contradiction out.
Can I ask you about, before we move on topic, if you want, I just want to ask you about one more contradiction that Simon Jordan didn't push him on, right? And I'm not saying I could do a better job than Simon Jordan, right? But all I would do is ask one simple, direct question, which is the question I asked you. The other question that I didn't see Simon push him on is this confidentiality. Have you noticed this, Riku? Every time Eddie Hearn gets asked a difficult question, he says he can't discuss that aspect of the case because it's confidential. So when Umar Ahmed asked him last week on IFL TV, he basically asked him, do UKAD have jurisdiction over Conor Benn, right? Eddie Hearn's exact words were, well, that's an argument for UKAD. And then he turned towards confidentiality, right? I would ask Eddie Hearn, it's very, very simple. If there are aspects of the Conor Benn case that you can't discuss due to confidentiality, again, why did you do the day before your interview with Umar Ahmed a 10-minute and 37-second interview, as you can see on the left-hand side here, on the Matchroom website, talking about the case? It's very, very simple, right? Either the case is confidential or it's not confidential. If it's confidential, why are you on your own fucking website? And nobody's asked why. Listen to this. he was fucking releasing information about the case. Look, here he is. The nightmare is over. He released a video on the Matchroom YouTube, right, discussing the case before UK had even released a statement. So
you know what was funniest about that interview? When he's speaking to Conor Benn and he's saying about, it's, God, he references sort of God in the fact that God has basically dealt them this hand. And I was just thinking to myself, when kids are starving in Syria or getting bombed in Ukraine, God's busy clearing Conor Benn rather than actually saving those kids, because that's what he's referenced. It's sort of God's work that everybody's now seen the truth. And then he kept on saying about how hard it was for him and how difficult the online abuse that he got for this and so on. He made it about himself. It's a hilarious interview.
I find it bizarre that no one's questioned him over this, because it seems to him that he's able to talk about the bits of any case that make Conor Benn or Matchroom look good. So if there's anything that makes Conor Benn or Matchroom look good.
Do you remember Dillian Whyte and do you remember the arbitration and everything? It was confidential with the lawyers. Nobody could talk about that, and it was a secret, and it was all confidential, and then it sort of disappeared, and we never saw that filing anywhere, right?
The arbitration, that's the one.
Can I ask you a question? Confidential.
Can somebody listen? I love Sporting Icons. I think Sporting Icons has the best boxing channel in the UK. I think he's brilliant. Listen, honestly, Sporting Icons the other day, right? Do you know what he did an interview. He did one of his shows. Do you know what he said, Riku? And he was 100% serious, because I've got the video here.
Yeah.
He said, Sporting Icons, right, on an episode, that Anthony Joshua's standby opponent for his last 3 fights was Cash Ali. He said, this is what Sporting Icons said. Feel free to click this up and send this to Sporting Icons. I think he's a fucking legend. I think he's got the best channel. Everybody subscribe. I think he's a legend. He said, and I have the video with his own words, he said that if for the Alexander Usyk rematch, if something had happened and Alexander Usyk, wasn't able to fight Anthony Joshua, Cash Ali would have been the stand-in opponent for Alexander Usyk. So we would have seen Anthony Joshua versus Cash Ali in Saudi Arabia instead of Anthony Joshua versus Alexander Usyk, right? So he said that with a straight face, and he's been 100% serious. Sporting Icons, does anybody know the result, of this arbitration case? Because I've never seen it, mate. And I know you've got a direct line to Dillian, and I know you said that you've had many private conversations. I'm just quoting you, brother. I know you've had many quote-unquote private conversations with Dillian. Do me a favor, mate. Can you please ask Dillian, what was the result of the arbitration over the purse split, over the purse split? We're not talking about the arbitration case over becoming a mandatory challenger to Tyson Fury, right? Because we can see the records for that case on the arbitration of sport over in Switzerland. We can see that case, but we can't find any sign of there being an actual arbitration case for the purse split. And you said, that an arbitrator might rule that Dillian Whyte is entitled to more of the split than the WBC offered him, right? So where is the arbitration case for that? If not, let me know, mate, but I'd love to know. Sorry, Riku, please jump on.
Yeah, I mean, it's so confidential that it's nowhere to be found, although there's all sorts of sporting cases, high profiles, football-related, multi-million cases, but this one is more confidential than any other case, so it probably can't be found. It's so confidential that Eddie's done 50 videos about it, but can't speak about that topic.
Anything else, Riku, on the state of UK boxing before you go?
I'm going to jump off, but good speaking with you, and let's see what the week brings, and maybe I'll jump on Sunday and we can digest all the stuff that's happened on Saturday evening. But I'm going Joshua first or second round.
Oh, okay. We'll have to wait and see. It's not
because I think Joshua's that good. It's because I think Helenius is that bad.
Right.
I don't think Helenius will be accepted in a camp as a sparring partner for Joshua anymore. Those days are gone.
Well, I think for those of you who want to talk about Helenius versus AJ, I think we're going to have a treat for you, because I think Tony's about to come on and discuss it. Riku, thanks very much. If I still have a YouTube channel, you are welcome to come on to do the post-fight if you want to talk about it post-fight.
Yeah,
I do plan on being live. Yeah, so you're welcome to. See you then. See you then, brother. See you then. See you then. Bye. Okay, Riku's got to go. I should be fucking working right now because I've got some things to do. But you know how these software projects go. They're an absolute disaster from top to bottom, innit? So it is what it is. I'm waiting on something from a third party, which I've been waiting on. Oh look, Niku's still here. Niku, tell you, Niku, yeah, I can't believe you're still here. You know, honestly, you can never ever say that I'm a bad guy, Nico. Never. You can never ever say that I'm a bad guy because you know what? We argue when we fight. And you talk absolute nonsense, but you're still here. You're still here. You know, I might have to mod you up one day, Nico, for the lols. Yeah, let me know, Nico, if you're interested in a wrench. I might have to mod you up for the lols, innit? All right. Look who's here. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, and yourself?
How's your shoulder, bro?
Bruh, I just took the packing off today. I got my first day of physical therapy today. Fuck it. Hold on. We'll jump on camera. Hold on 1 second. I'll show you.
No problem.
So it was supposed to be 3 small incisions in my shoulder, right? However, when the doctor went into my shoulder, he did the 3 incisions. It was supposed to be 2 scopes and the tool to cut away the clavicle, the bone. However, when he got in there, he was like, my fucking muscle is too big. So he had to pull all that out, and then he did another incision on top of the collarbone. So I'm all patched up. I'll show you. I got still tape over it. My arm's a little red. I haven't been able to shower. Like I can finally bathe later today, fourth day. Yeah. Because I don't want me to get an infection, but we'll turn it like this.
But hold on a minute. While you're getting your camera sorted out, how did you injure it? How did you get shot? Was it fighting? How did you get a shoulder injury?
Probably boxing and working. Well, I mean, the injury that I have is a common injury from throwing a lot of punches. Yeah. So it's a open distal clavicle excision. So basically where the clavicle and the joint meet, through all the wear and tear of my joint moving, it pretty much turned my clavicle into a spear and it was cutting into my labrum. So it's just from wear and tear. Try to grab this camera. We won't go to the show.
No worries. The chat is saying you're too hench. That's your real problem.
I'm too what?
You're too muscular, mate. That's what they're saying. They're saying that's your real problem, isn't it? Anyway. All right, here he is. Oh, okay, we can see it now, Tony. Yeah, we can see. Right. So point us through it.
1, 2, 3, and then the one on top is where they had to fillet it open like a fish. But yeah, there we go.
And you can't, and today's gonna be your first shower, yeah?
Yeah, I gotta wait till 3 p.m. my time. It's only 9 a.m. and then I can bathe.
There you go. All right, brother. Heal up.
Appreciate it. So yeah, this fight to me is dumb. It makes no sense because you know how they say history repeats, and I'm not going to say the history of Anthony Joshua is going to repeat, but this is very reminiscent of what happened in the past to AJ. So pretty much AJ was supposed to fight Gerald Miller, right? And that fight didn't happen because of PEDs. So Anthony Joshua got in there and he had a replacement, and that was Andy Ruiz, a short little fat dude, right? That he was supposed to beat. However, prior to that fight, AJ's first fight in America, Deontay Wilder had a spectacular knockout over Dominic Breazeale. I believe AJ lost that fight against Ruiz because he was trying to top. He was trying to outperform Deontay Wilder. How bad Wilder beat Breazeale. Now, AJ knocked Ruiz down and he was going in there for the kill. He got a lot sloppier than he normally does, through all caution to the wind, and he lost the fight to look better. You know what I mean? Because they were trying to build up the fight then. Had AJ beat Ruiz, we would have got the Wilder fight way back then. But he lost. Now you have the same thing happening in the future. Right now, well, I guess in the present. So you have Dillian Whyte, Pop Tot, short notice replacement, Helenius. Helenius just lost to Wilder. Now, I know Helenius had a fight in between against a nobody and won that fight, but Wilder's last fight was against Robert Helenius. He got a first-round knockout, and really the knockout came on the first solid punch that Wilder landed towards the end of the first round. Now you put an AJ in a situation where if he tries to outperform Deontay Wilder, he can run into a big shot because Helenius can punch. That's the only thing he has. He has a strong punch. So I think it's dumb because, one, you're putting a lot of pressure on AJ. Two, AJ can't look better than Wilder did. Like, AJ's not going to get a first-round knockout. It's just not going to happen. And if he does, it's going to come from accumulation of shots and not a one shot like Wilder did. So I don't understand why you would put him in there when you're trying to build up Wilder AJ. Why you would put AJ in a fight where he's going to look worse than Wilder? Eddie Hearn does some dumbass shit when it comes to promotion, and I don't understand it.
Do you know what? I think what you're saying is actually quite logical. But before we get on to that, because I think what you said actually is very logical, but I want to ask you first and foremost. So hold on. Out of the available opponents, right, Tony? And I want about available opponents, who would you have rather seen Anthony Joshua in the ring with?
Hrgovic.
That ain't going to happen, Tony. You know that. And to be honest, if Matchroom put him in with Hrgovic and Hrgovic sparked him out, Tony, we be coming on here criticizing Matchroom for saying they're fucking stupid for putting him in the ring with Hrgovic on short notice.
Right, but hear me out. I don't think he would, because Hrgovic in his last 2 fights has looked horrible. He looked horrible against Amir and he looked horrible against Zhang. Like in both fights, he looked bad. Then on top of it, he's been out of the ring for damn near a year. I think next month is a year, or maybe he's already been out of the ring for a year. So you got a guy who's been inactive in his last 2 fights, looked horrible. He looked gassed in the Zhang fight. So now you got a guy that's now ring rusted, been out of the ring for a year, looked bad in his last 2 fights, and he doesn't look like he has the lungs to go all 12 rounds. And in my opinion, you beat Hrgovic, you beat an alleged top 10 fighter. So now you're back in the limelight. Now you're back on top of the world because you just beat somebody relevant. So if we get into the same bullshit that happened before with Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua, where the fight doesn't happen for whatever reason, it doesn't matter because now you're a legitimate threat. Now you're in contention to go for the titles again because you beat Hrgovic. Beating Helenius does absolutely nothing for you. Beating Gerald Washington, who cares? Like I said in your chat, and I was being facetious, the dude's been knocked out like 10 times in a row.
Yeah.
So I feel like Hrgovic would have been the best one. Derek Chisora, I don't think that's a good choice because Derek Chisora can beat Anthony Joshua. I don't mean that he would beat him. I mean that he can beat him because Chisora is going to fight you from the first round to the 12th round. He's not going to stop. And he's going to keep throwing shots at you. Plus, they're really good friends. AJ looks at him like a mentor. When you get in the ring, that kind of goes out the window. But at the same time, you're probably not going to want to fight that dude. And then you had the unknown dude, the Australian dude. I wouldn't fight him. Yeah, I wouldn't fight him only because you don't know nothing about him. Like you probably never seen him fight because I've never seen him fight. So you don't know.
He's terrible. He's genuinely terrible. Genuinely.
Is he?
Genuinely. Go and look at the footage of Dempsey McKean. He ain't beating Anthony Joshua in no fight. They've already sparred as well. He's one of AJ's spar partners anyway.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Fight. AJ used him for the Usyk fight.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I know nothing about him. I was just saying, like, me personally, I wouldn't put my fighter in there with a guy I know nothing about with 20 plus wins and no losses. But I think the Hrgovic fight would have made the most sense and it would have been the best commercially and for his name's sake.
Helenius comes and goes, didn't he? Because he's been written off before, but then he's had a couple of really good results, right? He had a good result against Washington. He had a good result against Kawanaki, I think. Yeah. So he's had a couple of shots. He does seem to be a bit of a dangerous power puncher to a degree. I remember he buzzed Dillian Whyte off a jab when they fought. Chat, do you remember that when Helenius fought Dillian Whyte? And I think did Helenius go the distance? I think Helenius went the distance with Dillian Whyte quite a few years ago, 5 or 6 years ago. And I think Helenius buzzed Dillian off a jab. I think Helenius will come to fight in this, Tony. I think he came to fight against Deontay Wilder and he got absolutely iced, yeah? But I think he'll do the same. I think he'll realize, look, do you know what I mean? His only chance to win this fight is to get Anthony Joshua on the back foot and try and land something and then see what happens from there. Do you give Helenius any chance whatsoever of causing the upset, given that he does appear to have some form of one-punch power?
I mean, I give any fighter a chance that has knockout power, especially when you're fighting a guy who looks very gun-shy. So, yeah, he has a chance. The likelihoods of him winning are very low, but he could win. It's a possibility. I believe he's going to go in there to win. But again, to me, it doesn't make no matter what you. So let's say this. I don't even want to throw this into the ether, but I'm going to do it anyways. But here we go. Let's say that Helenius and AJ go 6-7 rounds, right? That gives Wilder all the excuses he needs not to fight AJ because he's going to be like, I knocked this dude out in the first round. Y'all think this guy can compete with me? He went 6-7 rounds with him. The first time I hit him, I put him down. Me and AJ are not the same. We're not on the same level. I'm better than him. Like, it just, you're setting yourself up to look so bad because Wilder had such a great performance. Like, you cannot outdo what Wilder did. And I know styles make fights, but boxing is dominated by casuals who are only going to look at what Wilder did and what AJ did. And they're both fighting them damn near back to back. So you can really gauge, because we're not going to say that this is a more worn-torn Helenius. This isn't a Helenius 4 or 5 years later. You know what I mean? Like, so if AJ doesn't do great, then the criticism is going to destroy him.
I agree with you, Tony, to a degree, because I do think, look, he's on a hiding to nothing. I just can't think of an opponent, right, that he could have taken on. I would have put him in. I personally, right, if I was DAZN, would have asked for Chisora. But I think for that fight to happen, they would have had to pay Chisora astronomical money, right? And I don't think that's going to happen anymore, right? They would have had to pay Chisora an astronomical guarantee, which I don't think they were willing to do. Tony, I'm sure you know the fight is now no longer on pay-per-view, Tony, as I'm sure you're aware now. Yeah. So you can see here, just by the fight no longer being pay-per-view, Tony, you kind of know now that you're no longer going to get like a top quality opponent, are you? Do you know what I mean? Because somebody like Chisora isn't going to go on a fight for peanuts and fight AJ. He's going to ask for massive money. So you kind of know the kind of quality of opponent you're getting. The only other name, I would have preferred Chisora, because I think they could have done Chisora and still had it on pay-per-view, to be honest. Whether they would have sold a lot, I don't know. Obviously, in terms of pure boxing purism, Chisora has no business being in the ring of Anthony Joshua. Otto Wallin, what did you think about him as an opponent? Allegedly, Wallin said, I am available ASAP. And apparently, Anthony Joshua's team turned down Wallin because they didn't want him getting in with a southpaw on 1 week's notice.
Otto Wallin would beat him.
No, Tony.
He'd beat him.
No, Tony. It's Otto Wallin, man. He ain't beating AJ, Tony.
I'm telling you, look. People can beat up, because I got, this was brought up to me last night that Otto Wallin got knocked out by AJ in the amateurs in the first round, but this ain't the amateurs no more. Here's the thing about it. Otto Wallin can box. He can stick and move, and he's, depending on what size AJ comes in, he might be bigger than AJ on the night. Because the thing about AJ is you never know what he's going to weigh. Is it going to be 250 or is it going to drop down to as high 230s? You don't know. But Otto Wallin is a consistent 245 to 255, and they're both 6'6". See, a lot of people think Otto Wallin's small because of how much bigger Fury was. But he's the same size, if not a little bit bigger than AJ. And the dude can actually move, just like Usyk moves. And we know AJ's biggest chink in his armor is a boxer who can move. Then you add on to the fact that the guy's a southpaw. I don't know, man. I don't know if AJ could beat him. And then you have to also think about the Franklin performance. How AJ was scared to let his hands go, and all he did was hug all night. Like, I don't know, man. Like, I like AJ. I've always given AJ all the credit in the world. I believe AJ did what a champion's supposed to do. He went out there, beat all the best guys there were. He never cherry picked. He always went for the top. He collected all the belts. Unfortunately, he lost to Usyk. But at the end of the day, he's not the same fighter. Ever since Ruiz beat him, he's different. He doesn't let his hands go. He's timid. And you put him in there with a guy who could stick and move really well. I just see all the writing on the wall for an upset.
Tony, I'm willing to bet you my channel that he would put Wallin into orbit, man. If he can't beat Wallin in conclusive fashion, Tony, it's a wrap for him. It's a wrap for him.
But why do you think he should? Why do you think he could? Because look at it like this. Look at it like this. Just hear me out, and then I'm gonna let you go. Otto Wallin, he gave Tyson Fury a very hard fight. Now, when you look at Tyson Fury, right now, he went up against Klitschko, who dominated the division for like 10 years straight and beat everybody, and he beat him easily. Okay. Tyson Fury comes back and, in my opinion, got robbed with a draw. He beats Deontay Wilder, who was on a long streak. I know whenever he beat him, it was like 10 title defenses, but I think the first time he fought him, it was 7 title defenses. Now, regardless of the competition of what people say about Wilder, he got in there 3 years, took 2 tune-ups that weren't even considered tune-ups, and went in there with them and beat them in the first one, and then dominated them 2 more times. Then you get him in there with Dillian Whyte. Now, people can say whatever they want about Dillian Whyte, especially with all the allegations that's going on right now. But at the end of the day, Dillian Whyte, prior to fighting Tyson Fury, beat like 5 top 10 ranked heavyweights. He He beat more top 10 heavyweights than Deontay Wilder without a title. Then Tyson Fury gets in there and makes him look like nothing. Derek Chisora makes Usyk go life or death. And Tyson Fury, once again, for the third time, makes Derek Chisora look like he's nothing. So when you've got Tyson Fury, every time he's had a quality opponent, he makes them look like they're trash, like they're levels below him. And then you got a guy like Otto Wallin who made him go life or death. I would say that it's not as clear-cut as you're making it out to be, in my opinion.
I just feel, I could be wrong on this, I just feel that Tyson Fury is one of them fighters, a bit like Usyk in a way, where I think they do fight up to the opposition. I don't think it's a coincidence that if you look at the hardest fights of Tyson Fury's career, he's put in the best performances of his career. And I think when you look at Usyk's career, you see the same thing. There's some fighters that I just think have an extra gear, right? And they need that extra bit of motivation. And when the chips are down and these fighters, and they get in the ring with somebody who they actually believe has the ability and power to knock them out. So when Usyk got in the ring with like a Murat Gassiev, you saw him put in arguably that before Anthony Joshua was probably his best career performance to date. And I don't think that was a coincidence when he was in the ring with probably the most concussive puncher he'd ever been in the ring with, right, prior to when he got with Anthony Joshua. He puts in, career best performance. And I think that might have been after the Maris Breedis fight where that was quite controversial, yeah? And many people thought Breedis won and people were writing off Usyk a little bit. And then he goes in there and he puts in a 12-round masterclass. And I think you see the same thing with Tyson Fury, where he gets in the ring, yeah, with an Otto Wallin, yeah, and he doesn't come out at 100%, yeah, and people write him off and say Deontay Wilder's going to bash him up and knock him out in the rematch, and then he comes out and just absolutely destroys Deontay Wilder in 7 rounds. I just think some fighters fight up to the level of their opposition. So I think that's the anomaly there with Fury. I've never read too much, yeah, into Otto Wallin giving Tyson Fury a cut at all. I think that, like I said, if they were to have a rematch, I think you see something that would be completely different. I think you'd end up seeing Fury stop him. In terms of Wallin and AJ, yeah, I think Usyk's just a terrible matchup for Anthony Joshua because he's active. He's very, very active. And he fights at a very, very high pace. And I think anybody who's able to make Anthony Joshua fight at an extremely high pace is going to give him problems. I do think the southpaw angles were a huge, huge problem for Anthony Joshua, particularly in the first fight. He did a bit better in the second fight. I don't think he knows how to stop southpaws getting on the outside of him and Usyk turning angles and turning corners around him, right? And fair enough. But I also think it's the pace of the fight, which is what causes Anthony Joshua to crumble against Alexander Usyk. The fact that Usyk's able to get him fighting at such a high pace, he's able to get him to expend all his energy physically and mentally, right? In those first 1 to 4 rounds. And you see AJ biting on the feints from Usyk, and he gets very tense. He gets very uncomfortable. He starts loading up on his shots and he just drains his gas tank. Usyk knows how to get AJ to fight at a pace. He knows how to drag AJ into a boxing match. He knows how to get AJ biting on his feints. He knows how to get AJ loading up, and he knows how to get AJ generally boxing out of his comfort zone. I don't think, even though Otto Wallin is left-handed, I don't think Otto Wallin brings I don't think he brings the same activity in the ring as Alexander Usyk. I don't think he brings the same foot speed. So let's start. I don't think he brings the same foot speed as Alexander Usyk. I don't think he'll be able to turn corners and pivot around Anthony Joshua as fast as Alexander Usyk was. I don't think he brings the hand speed of Alexander Usyk. I don't think he brings the feinting of Alexander Usyk. And most importantly, I don't think he brings the high activity of Alexander Usyk. And I think against Wallin, AJ will be fighting at a much more comfortable pace. He'll be fighting at a nice, comfortable pace. We'll be able to sit there, read time, catch and shoot, which is actually what he's quite good at. Whereas with Usyk, he just isn't able to fight at that pace. That's why before Wallin, I honestly think he'd get Wallin out of there. But go on, Tony. Come in and give me your opinion on that.
AJ couldn't get Jermaine Franklin out of there, and Jermaine Franklin stood in front of him the whole damn fight. I mean, hey, you talking about Jermaine Franklin's a very small heavyweight at that, and I like.
He's durable. He's durable, Franklin.
I've rated him for years before anybody, even in America, people didn't know who he was. I was rating him, and I said that he was somebody to watch out for. And I believe, and Dillian Whyte's my favorite UK fighter. I'm gonna say that. I don't care. I like Dillian Whyte. Still like him. I want to see what he got popped for, and I want to see these tests. If he failed, release the information. Why hasn't it been released yet? Anyway,
confidentiality.
Yeah, I digress.
Confidentiality. Yeah, he's failed multiple tests, by the way. You know that, don't you?
Yeah. I heard that fat dude say that.
Yeah. Carry on.
But anyways, like I was saying, I thought Jermaine Franklin beat Dillian Whyte. Personally, I thought it was a close fight, but I really thought Franklin got robbed. But anyways, the point is this. AJ couldn't get Franklin out of there, who's a standstill, come forward, right at you type fighter, and all he did was hug. If you watch Otto Wallin fight, he doesn't fight like that. He uses angles, just like Usyk. He does in and out. He boxes around you. So, again, I would have to look up their arm reach. I would assume that AJ has longer arms than Wallin, because normally...
Who's got the better chin? Who do you think takes a punch better? Who do you think takes a better punch? Wallin or Franklin? So when AJ does land, who do you think is going to absorb that punch better?
I don't know, because we haven't seen Otto Wallin's chin really tested to say whether it's durable or not. We don't. I mean, all of the fights that I've seen him fight, I haven't seen him hurt. I mean, Dominic Breazeale's a shit fighter, but he had a lot of power. That's all he had, and he didn't hurt Otto Wallin at all. Otto Wallin just danced around him all night and fucked him up. So I don't know. Like I said, I think AJ at this point, and I hate to say it because I like AJ, but I think he is worn-torn. I think he's gun-shy, and I think he's one big fight away from losing. I don't think he could be. Hold on, just listen to me. When I look at the top guys, because I know you could say, oh, Zhilei Zhang beat him, even though I think it was BS. I think Joe Joyce got robbed because there was no point in stopping the fight. But I don't think AJ could beat Joe Joyce. I think Joe Joyce mows him over. I think he hurts him badly. I don't think AJ could beat Tyson Fury. I know AJ can't beat Usyk. I don't think AJ can beat Deontay Wilder at this point in time, because if he doesn't let his hands go, Wilder's going to throw everything at him. He's just going to windmill him to death. I don't think he can beat Otto Wallin for the reasons that I mentioned, the dude southpaw, and he can move. I don't know who AJ beats. I don't know how AJ gets a title again. Maybe he could beat a Joseph Parker if they ran it back, but I really don't know who AJ beats, because when I look at him, his intensity is gone. His confidence is gone. I don't even know if he could beat Andy Ruiz in a trilogy. See, here's the thing about it. AJ beat Andy Ruiz, right? And he lost Andy Ruiz. I don't know if AJ was truly at his best, if he was really concussed going into that fight. I don't know if the excuses are real. But what I do know for a fact is when Andy Ruiz went against AJ in the second one, he definitely wasn't at his best. He wasn't as good as he was on the short notice, because the dude gained like 80 pounds of blubber. So I'm not even sure that AJ can beat Ruiz in a trilogy because of the lack of activity, like how all he does is hug. Like that's all he did to Franklin. He just hugged him all night. This dude, in my opinion, the chink in AJ's armor is he is mentally weak, and you can break him in the ring. You can break him mentally. And that's something you can't train or teach. You can't make somebody mentally strong.
Can I quickly butt in? Let me ask you.
Go ahead.
Wilder. A lot of people seem to think that this Wilder fight is going to happen in January, December time. I'm struggling to figure out how you go from Helenius on a week's notice into a fight with Wilder. Now, I think if that fight happens, Anthony Joshua deserves a hell of a lot of credit. Do you see that fight happening next?
I mean, I don't know. The only reason why I say I don't know is Wilder was supposed to fight Ruiz, and Ruiz has done everything he can do not to fight Deontay Wilder. The WBC already mandated the fight, saying that the winner would get the fight for the WBC title. Wilder threw the offers out there at Andy Ruiz, and Andy Ruiz would not take the fight. So I don't know if Wilder will fight AJ that soon, because I would have ventured to say that he needs some type of tune-up before you go in there with him. And if he doesn't fight, he's got to fight somebody. So if we get the fight, I don't think it happens till like summer of next year at the earliest.
Yeah. What do you think? Do you think AJ is going to need another tune-up before Wilder? Yeah, you think he needs one more, doesn't he?
I don't know. It depends. I would say it's contingent on this fight right here. If he does, I hope it doesn't, but I hope he gets him out of there fast. I hope I'm wrong and he knocks Helenius out in the first round. If he knocks him out in the first round, then yeah, he may want to tune up. But if this goes like 8, 9, 10, 11 rounds, then he doesn't need a tune up.
Right. Let me ask you before we go, Tony. What's your prediction for this Helenius fight? How are you thinking this fight's going to go? What are you expecting to happen? And how are you expecting it to go?
I think Helenius is going to be very cautious early, especially after what Wilder did to him.
Right, true. True. He retired, by the way, didn't he? He actually retired from boxing after that.
He did. And he came back. And now he's fighting again. But I mean, I don't know. I think it's going to be on AJ to push the action because I think Helenius is going to try to fight off the back foot. I think he's 6'7", 6'8". He's taller. So he should have the reach on AJ. So it's going to be on AJ to bring the fight to Helenius. And because Helenius came off that devastating knockout loss and he's in there with a knockout artist, I just see him being more negative, setting up big shots, trying to counter. And it's going to be on AJ. I think AJ gets him out of there probably in between the 5th to 7th round, but I think it's going to go on for a while.
Let me ask you one more thing. Sorry. Get all this mental stuff about AJ, right? I'm talking purely from a boxing perspective, right? Okay. Put your trainer hat on for a second, yeah? You're in Robert Helenius' corner, yeah? He's about to go into the ring with Anthony Joshua in 5-6 days' time or whatever it is, yeah? What are you telling Robert Helenius? So put your trainer's hat on now, right? What are you saying to Robert Helenius? You're in Robert Helenius' team. You've got a fight with Anthony Joshua Saturday night. What things are you telling Robert Helenius about what to do against AJ, what to do? Okay, maybe mental, yeah, what to say, whatever. Like, just you're in his team. What are you telling him, Tony?
Well, the first thing I would do tactically is I'm going to tell him to be not to get points taken off of him, but I'm going to tell him within the first 2 rounds, whenever AJ clinches, because AJ is going to try to clinch, do dirty stuff. Hit him with your forearm, hit him in the leg, rough him up, make him uncomfortable, make him unsure. Like, be dirty. I know you can say it's cheating. I don't care. We're trying to mentally break somebody.
It's a part of the sport.
Make it dirty in the clinch. Make it real dirty. And then if you hit him with a hard shot and you hurt him, jump on him. Don't put everything behind your punches. Just do pity patters, but barrage him with shots to take that confidence away. Every time you catch him, every time you hurt him, exploit him, break his confidence. That's the main thing. When you catch him, be aggressive. Make him scared to come in because he's already looking gun shy. Like even against Usyk, he looked gun shy. Like I don't know what it is. AJ has all the attributes to be great, but his mind, it fails him. And I'm going to say this. This is why I say he's mentally weak. It came way before his losses. People used to call him a bodybuilder, right? They used to be like, oh, he's a bodybuilder. He's not a fighter, blah, 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 blah. What's the first thing AJ did? He listened to people and lost all his weight. If you're mentally strong, you don't really give a fuck what people say. You don't care. Like, okay, I'm a bodybuilder, but I'm knocking all these dudes out. So what? You know what I mean? But
I agree. Carry on.
Yeah, the fact that he listens to what everybody says, and then I saw the video that came out of the UK where he tried to fight a college kid because some college kid yelled something at him. Like, It just shows me all the signs of a guy who is just mentally weak. He's just he physically he's got it all, but his mind's just not. It doesn't match his attributes. It doesn't.
I'll ask you last question. I'll ask in the chat quickly. Who do you think's the harder puncher, if you had to guess? Just out of interest, Tony in chat, because I'm not up on Helenius. I haven't seen Helenius for a little bit of a while, so I need to go back and have a look at him. But Helenius or Usyk, out of interest, who do you guys say is the harder hitter, Tony?
Oh, Helenius, by far Helenius. Usyk's not a hard puncher. Usyk is what I call death by 1,000 pillows.
It's interesting. No, I'm thinking. I'm literally thinking in my head. How's he going to react if he gets? Listen, I think he's going to get Helenius out of there. But I'm just thinking, Jesus, like if Helenius does catch him with something in this fight, and we know Helenius can hit, yeah, you do worry about him, Tony. Like you do worry if Helenius can land something. You do worry about it, and I agree with you, Tony. I think that he is promotionally here. He is on a hiding to nothing. He's not gonna. It's highly unlikely he's going to finish Helenius in more devastating fashion. So essentially, he's kind of set himself up, isn't he, really, to get nothing but a criticism. So in that respect, I do feel sorry for him. And I do agree with you also about him caring what other people think as well, Tony. I do agree with you on that as well. The losing of the weight, he should come in, he is what he is, isn't he? He is what he is, Tony. All right, Tony, sign us out, Tony. Give us your final thoughts and then we'll sign off. Give us any final thoughts that come to your head.
Yeah, appreciate you letting me on Ultra Tech. If y'all haven't done it yet, hit that thumbs up. That's most important. Subscribe to this channel also. Don't come here and just listen. on a occasion, be a regular guest. The door is always open. You're welcome. Come in, subscribe, hit the thumbs up. Like I said, as far as this fight goes, I just see it as a lose-lose for Anthony Joshua. It's a fight that I think he should win. I just don't think he can look better than Wilder did winning this fight. So whether he wins, he loses, because people are going to criticize him. And if he loses, his career is over. So I don't like it. It is what it is. Somebody had to fill in. And Eddie Hearn, if I find out that Dillian Whyte fell because of eggs, Clomid, I am going to do a whole week of videos about you. On that note, I'm out. Thanks, man.
All right, Tony. Tony, hopefully see you on the thing after the fight. Let me know in chat, Tony, but let me know if you can come on after the fight for the post-fight. That'd be absolutely great. Guys, right. Unlike a lot of these YouTubers, I actually have a job. So I'm going to go and get back to that job. All right. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other.